then I think we need to remember as moms and dads how important our specific feedback is. We drop them off. Remember that you're curious. I can't wait to find out what you learned today. Remember that you are a careful kid, and I expect your work is going to demonstrate that. Remember that I know that you are self-controlled, and I expect that you're going to have an easy time behaving well today. So be positive.
What do we do with anxiety, especially anxiety that our kids have? I think it's part of the reality of the human condition that we're going to worry or be anxious about things. Those realities, especially for us as parents and adults that love kids who watch kids struggle with this, it can put us into a dark place. But today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy has some important insights for us to help us walk with our kids through anxious or worrisome times. So let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, navigating new situations can really cause a lot of anxiety in adults. So I kind of imagine what it must be like for kids when change happens that we weren't expecting. It can really create a lot less of, I would say, maybe life satisfaction experience, a life satisfaction for us. Even a child who is excited about school is likely to have questions about things like making friends and getting into a new classroom and setting up their desk. And it can even kind of set them back a little bit on how they perform academically or socially or emotionally inside of those situations. Although the back to school season can be really hectic, it's also a hard time to slow down to really chat for us as parents on how our kids are doing. And there's a lot of different people who have expert tips and ways to really help yourself and your kids get through this transition. But I wanted to ask you, how do we start this gentle transition, if I could call it that? I don't think it's gentle for many people, right? It just kind of comes. But I'd like to think that there could be a gentle transition into school from summer. What should we do as parents right now in this moment?
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. I think the most important thing to do is adjust sleep when they go to bed and when they wake up, because it's going to be very different when school starts. So I would love to see that we start adjusting the go to bed time, 15 minutes earlier and then 15 minutes earlier than that, and then another 15 minutes earlier than that, so that the children are aware or able to wake up, and be alert, so that they have the number of hours of sleep that would be ideal. And most kids don't get enough sleep. So that would be the first thing I would say, was adjust the sleep times if you still have time to do that. The other thing that comes to mind, Wayne, would be food. I don't know about your kids, but I know of some kids who they just graze all day long. Like, they have a breakfast and a lunch and a dinner, but they have a whole bunch of snacks in between because the refrigerator's right there, or mom is kind enough to put a bowl of fruit on the kitchen table, or healthy snack bars or whatever. So they're not going to be allowed to graze at school. And so that might even be a change that we would want to make. And then I think, could I suggest that parents also need to be ready for the transition? I know from watching Facebook that there are some moms who have kids in 3 different schools with 3 different start times, and they're going to be the taxi driver extraordinaire. And, you've chosen that for your family, and so it is a busyness for you. So I think moms need to gear up for that and recognize that they're going to have far less time at home. They're going to have less alone time if they've had that during the summer because their kids were busy playing. And so I think we need to psychologically get ready for that.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I think that's really important to recognize that these changes are occurring, and for some of us, they're occurring on purpose. We kind of, have instituted this, and then we kind of pick up the back end of what happens when these changes happen. I want to talk, though, a little bit about this, because I do think that building confidence in our kids at this moment when changes happen is really, I would say, maybe a primary goal for many parents. We want them to go into school and just have confidence that this is where they should be. And we want them to go up to new friends because they have confidence in who they are. How can parents really reinforce a child's identity during times of transition like this, especially things where they've received maybe a lot of support and encouragement and extra parenting time at home, and now they're going into an environment where maybe people aren't as nurturing or don't know their child as well as the parent does? How can we reinforce their identity as they're transitioning into these moments?
Yeah, I love those questions. I think to be very specific in our language. And I think one of the things we say is, remember whose you are. And in that I would mean God. You're God's child, so behave like it, represent Jesus well. I think those are conversations to have. Remember that you have committed your life to Christ. You have the guidance and help of the Holy Spirit in you. And what does that mean? That means that you can be self-controlled. It does mean that you can respect others. It does mean that you will not lie, even if all the other kids appear to be lying. And so we expect for you to behave as you are. And then also remember you're our son. A lot of people have heard me say that, when I grew up, the mayor of my city was my grandfather. And I had one brother and 4 cousins on this side of the family, and we were watched by the media. And I was proud to be Irv Meyer's granddaughter. And I think my brother and my cousins would say the same thing. We just come from a fabulous family. And so we knew like there was a mantle on us that not only was I Don and Arlene Cook's daughter, and I wanted to represent them well, but I was Irv and Ollie Meyer's granddaughter. And there was an expectation on us that we would not behave in such a way that would make life difficult for our grandparents because we loved them that much. So I think we talk about what's it mean that you're in our family and what are our family values, and will you maintain those even if your peer group thinks that those values are just silly. And then in addition to those discussions about the family and the family values, then I think we need to remember as moms and dads how important our specific feedback is. We drop them off. Remember that you're curious. I can't wait to find out what you learned today. Remember that you are a careful kid, and I expect your work is going to demonstrate that. Remember that I know that you are self-controlled, and I expect that you're going to have an easy time behaving well today. So be positive and use language that is honoring and repeatable. Where that kid is, 10 minutes later, an hour and a half later, your kid is struggling, but your kid is like, wait, but daddy said I have self-control, so I am not going to get obnoxious in this moment. Like that would be so sweet.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I love that. And as we close, I want to ask you a little bit. We'd have these different maybe conversation points or conversation starters with our kids, especially as they're getting ready to go back to school and even as they're starting up school. And it's often like, hey, how was school today? Or, are you excited and ready to start school? I don't know if those are great conversation engagements. Do you have any thoughts of ways that we could start conversations or specific conversations we should be having with our kids in these moments?
I love that question. I think it's appropriate to say, I think it's appropriate to ask, are you excited? Rather than assuming they are. Like some of them aren't, some of them have loved being at home, and maybe they didn't have a great experience last year. And you know that. Don't live in denial here. You're the mom and the dad, you're the grandparent, and you know that your son or daughter struggled last year and maybe didn't have a good peer group, maybe had critical teachers and is going off to school and like, I don't want to go. Like, I don't feel safe there. I don't like who I am there. I don't feel like I'm a smart kid. So I think let's honor that experience and say, hey, how can I help you have a better expectation as the year begins? So I think ask, are you excited? Or are you looking forward to it? And if not, how can I help you? Not can I help, but how can I help you? I think I would also love us to ask the question, do you have any concerns? Like, no joke, some kids are concerned about their locker. That's a big deal. Some kids are concerned about the bathroom, and that's okay. That's a big deal. Some kids are concerned that they're going to forget their teacher's name and call her mommy, and that is embarrassing. So ask the question, do you have some concerns and how can I help you? And don't wait until the night before school. Ideally, if you're listening to this and you're far enough away from the start of the year for you, and it varies so much in America, then I think you start to ask the question, in the days ahead, and not in front of their siblings maybe, but maybe it's just you and one of your kids going for a walk and you have those real conversations. And then wouldn't it be amazing, Wayne, if we problem solved with them and if we maybe told a relevant story if we have one, but we also said, again, how can I help you? And if you get stressed in the middle of the day, what are some things that you can remember that you can do? So that we strategize with them and they believe that they can be more positive even when they get to school.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Philippians chapter 4, and I'll begin reading at verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again. Rejoice. Let your goodness and gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I don't know about you, but I really feel like anxiety is just almost a way of life. It's something that happens to us as we consider the different possibilities and outcomes and situations that we're going to be in. And the writer here really encourages us not to be anxious. But instead, rather than having anxiety, he calls us to replace that thinking process that drives us to anxiety with a heart of prayer, and really gives us some instruction to have a prayer or a petition that we bring before the Lord, first and foremost with thanksgiving, and then to present our requests to God, and then to look forward or to have anticipation of this peace that's now going to transcend our understanding of whatever moment we're in. We understand that God will guard our hearts and minds then, specifically as we draw near to Him and understand the dynamics of the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross and what that really does for us. I wonder if for our kids, as they're facing some anxious times, if rather than just telling them, don't be anxious, we actually gave them a prayer. We actually walked them through how to process this. The reality is that as they get to be, moms and dads down the road, if the Lord calls them to that, or they have a job, or they have friendships, they're going to find themselves in points or periods of anxiety or worry. But if we give them a heart or an attitude, I would even say like muscles, to really pray through those moments, I think that that's going to be the bright light that they're going to need to shine and cut through those dark times. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment Facing the Dark. Again, we're running a short course right now on specifically the 8 smarts. We want to help you awaken those as you're looking to have your kids start up with school again, or as you're working with other kids and they're starting up school again. The 8 smarts are really special. It's a special way to look at learning and really a person's identity and how they process the world around them. I think that this course is really dynamic and really important, and I would encourage you to go to the website and check it out. You can find it at celebratekids.com. Now, on behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Thanks for listening today, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.